Hey, good morning. My name's Vincent McCrudden, President of Project for Government Reform. Welcome back. This is the third in a series of tutorials that I wanted to publish on my YouTube channel to help people better understand the process of various things in the criminal justice system and the U.S. financial regulatory system. I haven't really touched too much on the financial regulatory system yet, but I will get there eventually. So today, I want to talk to you about something that I'm actually really uh, passionate about, and something that I've really looked closely at the past few years. It's the criminal justice reform organizations and how they sell out and exploit the very people and their families that are they're supposedly advocating for. Um, when I came out of the joint, uh, I was in there three separate times. I think I've told you in the past for bullshit reasons. My experiences have been solely with the federal government, but when I came out, obviously I wrote a book. Um, I started Project for Government Reform. I submitted multiple federal tort claims acts that I've talked to you before about. Suing people, trying to hold people accountable. And so there's kind of this desperation of, what can I do as a certain individual? And for me in particular, because, I didn't have a mea culpa moment. There wasn't anything that I needed to apologize to anybody about. I was targeted and pursued for many years. These cowards in the government took advantage of me, regulators, judges, um, FBI, U.S. Marshals, BOP officials, you name it. All these cowards that hide behind the United States government as an entity had their way with me. So I wanted to personally, when I came out, wanted to do my own thing, but I actually wanted to join an organization that I thought, we were on the right page, that I could be a spokesperson for, that I could be a role model for. I didn't need to apologize, about anything. I wasn't a gangbanger. I wasn't a chomo. I wasn't a robber. I didn't do any fraud. I didn't do anything to anybody. I mean, I thought I'd be the perfect person. I could just align myself with somebody with the right purpose and the right reasons. And again, I was so naive as to how this stuff works. So for 4 or 5 years now, I've kind of looked at these people and these organizations in a different light, and I wanted to share, my findings with you. So, part of the problem in any country really is false nationalism, false patriotism. We like to say we're a democracy. We're not. That's just, it's just false. It's just not factually correct. Um, we like to say, sing songs or whatever, home of the free, land of the brave. I mean, it's bullshit. We're not home of the free. Um, how is that found out? It's just statistically not true. We're not a free country. We are a police state. I mean, that's really what we are. It's just one of the hypocrisies that go on and on and on. That just because it's such a cowardice country, nobody stands up for anything. There's certain little groups that stand up to different things, but when it comes down to really big issues, after what happened to me, I mean, I'd get 10, 20,000 people and storm Capitol Hill and drag these people out by their necks and string them up. In the courts, the judges, all these people who hide behind the government and false pretenses, who bastardize the Constitution. I couldn't recruit 50 or 100 people to do that with me. And I'll tell you why in a little bit, what a cowardice country it is. So, and I'm not going to go up there by myself. So that's a suicide mission. But we by any stretch of the imagination, we incarcerate the most people in the history of the planet. In any given day, we house about over 2 million people. Um, and there's kind of a breakdown there of where they are. Um, in the federal government, they're kind of constant around 200,000 or so that are incarcerated. But what really people should really be concerned about is, and this is how they're going to start to get over numbers, especially after the passing of the First Step Act. All these cowards in these organizations will talk about what they're going to do is they're going to distort the record and about how many people are actually incarcerated versus how many people are under the footprint of the government or state, local, what have you. That's going to increase over time. Mark my words. So there's about 2 million people incarcerated. It's actually pretty steady number, give or take. Um, and there's about 7 million people under the footprint of, under probation or parole or what have you. And a lot of those people end up going back in for mostly usually bullshit reasons, technical rule violations, not new crimes, not new indictments. So there's a chart of where the 19 Nixon really kind of ran kind of hardcore first on the police state, and then I think maybe Ronald Reagan, I'm not an expert in that stuff, maybe saw it. He's one of these rats, Ronald Reagan, right? Back in the McCarthy days in the 50s, whatever, he ratted out his people out in California, and then he becomes president. It's the typical hypocrisy story of the United States. And he decides he's going to go, develop really hardcore the war on crime, war on drugs, war on crime, war on terrorism, whatever war they want to do. They've really smartly, through all the think tanks in Washington, have developed a way to basically market and profit off of mass incarceration. That's what they're best at, and get you, the citizen, to pay for it. And all of them make money off it and sell it as something other than what it is. I'm not soft on crime, believe me. I'm not. If you're a chomo, you touch my children, you touch anybody's children, your ass is going to be in jail. If you do it more than once, then there's going to be harsher punishment. I'm not soft on crime. You break and enter into my home, I'm going to shoot you, and you're going to go to jail. The guys that I take time with that are hardcore guys who want to live the life, I'm not advocating for them. All right, but I've did a lot of time. 99% of the guys I did time with, they don't deserve to be in there. That's who I'm an advocate for. I'm an advocate, for people like myself who don't deserve to be there, and other guys, mostly guys who are not that educated, they're impoverished, and they're not violent. They may be more violent when they get in prison and stuff like that because they're just stressed out and they just don't see any hope. But for the most part, if if they were able to make a living and get out and get jobs and have their families, most of these dudes are good guys. So at the end of the day, why I'm talking about criminal justice organizations, because the United States of America over the last 30 years has incarcerated the most people in the history of the world. That's just flat out truth. All right. The most people in the history of the fucking world. That's the United States of America. That's the truth. That's facts. So this is something I ran up. This is supporters of the First Step Act. This is not all criminal justice organizations. I just wanted to give you an idea of the amount of people. This is supposedly bipartisan type thing. Yeah, my bipartisan, my ass. One thing that they're bipartisan on is taking advantage of the poor and impoverished, locking people up. That's what they're, and under the guise of some other type of bullshit. That's something that they'll get together on. President Trump, we'll talk about in a little bit. He ran on law enforcement and military. I don't have anything against President Trump. He knows the mob mentality better than anybody. But this so far over his 2.5 years or 3 years in the presidency, this is one of the big things he takes credit for. And this is the reason I'm doing this today, is to show you who sold all of us out. So you got a bunch of these criminal justice organizations, reform organizations, but you also have a lot of law enforcement agencies as well that Trump loves to pander to. Here's some more of them. So I can't get it, and they're not all listed here. These are just people who put their name to the First Step Act, but there's literally hundreds of them, and there's tens of thousands of people who are behind the scenes, but it's a fairly small community in and around Washington, D.C. that I've noticed over the past 4 or 5 years that constantly support one another. Are always in kind of the news. Somehow, some way, got a platform to talk on behalf of somebody like me. I don't know how it goes down, but these are fucking sellouts, these people, and it's something I'm going to explain. So one of the first ones that I want to highlight is Cut 50. From what I can see, they were given the mandate to really kind of bring it forward. How it went about, supposedly it went about because Van Jones was doing something with on CNN. He talked to Newt Gingrich. They were trying to get something to work on, and Van Jones, being a scumbag, lawyer, climber, for himself, narcissist, self-promoter, P.T. Barnum. He was looking to raise his profile. Newt Gingrich is a media whore as well. And they just put this group together. This guy next to Van Jones there is this guy, Matt Haney. I think he's some district guy in California. Next to him is Jessica Sloan Jackson, Newt Gingrich, Eric Holden. Um, he was a former United States Attorney General. He's one of these members of the deep state, embedded in Washington D.C. He works for Covington now, which is basically a government arm, really. All ex-lawyers and stuff that go in there. He initiated the Fast and the Furious, which, if you guys don't remember, he basically sent out guns to criminals to see if he could track them. I don't know who the fuck thought that was a good idea. It ends up that one of the guns was used to kill a Border Patrol agent, and this guy doesn't want to be accountable for it, as we know, right, in the Federal Tort Claims Act and what have you. This is just a scumbag. Eric Holder is just a scumbag, and they continue to be able to do what they want. Van Jones recruits him. Newt Gingrich recruits him. Donna Brazil's next to him. I don't know who the other three people are. They're sellouts as well. And they get together and they con people into thinking that they're criminal justice reform people, that they're benevolent people. These are all narcissist motherfuckers. That's all that they are, is just self-promoters. So the one that I could see right now, because of the First Step Act and because I'm doing it at this time, is Van Jones. He seems to be the guy because of his presence on CNN. He was given some type of position under Obama. He was really kind of a green guy. We know through the whole solar thing that turned out to be some huge bumfuck, right? I mean, millions and billions of dollars were lost through these companies, and this motherfucker he fails and he somehow parlays his way into something else. It's just unbelievable how it happens. But he's a scumbag ladder climbing lawyer. He's the co-founder of this Cut 50. He had some other type of DreamWorks, organization that he parlayed that into. He's a Yale. He's an elitist Ivy League prick. He takes credit for the passing of the First Step Act, just like Al Gore took credit for inventing the internet. He's parlayed the whole selling of the First Step Act into now. He's CEO of this new bullshit organization called Reform Alliance. They've got maybe we'll take a look at it in a little while, but they have got 5 billionaires who supposedly put $50 million into it. They've put out front another poster boy, Meek Mills, to look at the which is a huge issue, the parole and probation violation issue. I don't think Meek Mills is a fucking saint, but anyway, they put him forward because he's a rapper. Jay-Z makes money off him because he sells records for him. He's under his label. And Jay-Z and Robert Kraft, who likes getting rub and tugs down in Florida. Michael Novogratz, this guy Smith, I believe, it was a guy who just donated money to Morehouse College, is a Vista Equity Partners, private equity guy, is part of it. And these motherfuckers are selling sneakers. Michael Rubin, a part owner of the Philadelphia 76ers, and he's got a company called Fanatics that makes all the equipment, the gear for all the professional sports teams. and they're looking for money. I mean, these guys could fund so much by themselves, as they said that they would, and they could put so many guys to work themselves. And they're out there fucking selling sneakers and doing bullshit stuff and selling records and selling other bullshit. It really makes me sick. But Van Jones here is he's just one of these climbers, a narcissist motherfucker, modern day P.T. Barnum. Another sellout here is Jessica Jackson Sloan, or Jessica Sloan Jackson, whatever her name is, another scumbag lawyer. You're going to see it's just all full of lawyers double dealing, playing on both sides of the on the debate here, in this what is essentially a four debate, looking like it's an adversarial debate when they're really kind of all just making money off of people for themselves and self promotion, and that's what really disgusts me the most. She got into it somehow because she was some little Southern Georgia Belle or something like that. Her husband went to prison for drugs. She divorced his ass, and she ran into Van Jones, and now she's co-founder of Cut 50. Who the fuck gave her permission to talk on behalf of people like me? I have no fucking idea. But this is what goes down. This is what happens, and they make money for themselves, and they go out there like they're benevolent, and they don't do any justice for anybody. One of the interesting things that I found is this guy Charles Koch, and his brother David, or whatever, but mostly I guess it's mostly Charles Koch. I guess 20 something years ago, whatever, he was involved in a civil lawsuit, and I think he was surprised at the cost. They ended up settling. I'm not sure how he got into the criminal justice system or why. He's not a benevolent guy. It's just one of these billionaires who are just bored, looking for things, trying to raise their profile, and he's picked an easy target: criminal justice reform, because it's so draconian. It's just so off the chart unfair, and these guys just go out there and pretend. I mean, this guy makes $110 billion a year as of last year, his company. He could hire tens of thousands of dudes like us who need jobs to come out. I've emailed this motherfucker and asked him, how many people out of the 120,000 people you supposedly employ, how many are ex-felons if you're such a benevolent guy? Not, he won't answer, and neither will any of his lieutenants will answer as well. So here's Charles Koch here, a billionaire, and the media. He pays PR firms. That's what goes on nowadays. You make all this money, and the media, you hire these PR people to uh, paint the picture and con the public in that you're a benevolent motherfucker, when you're just really just out, for money. So Charles Koch's top guy that he's handpicked to get the word out that Koch Industries is a benevolent organization concerned about criminal justice reform is a guy named Marc Holden. He is, yep, Ned again, a scumbag ladder climbing lawyer. He's senior vice president, general counsel for Koch Industries. His experience as criminal justice reform advocate. He's one of the guys that is out there all the time. He's invited to all these things all the time. He was a janitor at a prison as a kid. That gives him the right, and that being a Koch, being a lawyer and a Koch lieutenant, gives him the right to speak on behalf of people like me, and all the people and families that suffer through this mass incarceration thing that goes on. I've talked to people in the industry. He's supposedly just a scumbag. He's not committed. He just sells himself like he is, pretends. He's a prime example of this faux debate that goes on out there. Give the public, and then of course the media don't do their jobs. He's quoted all the fucking time. He's invited to speak, and it's just disgusting, really. It's disgusting. So his top lieutenant, his deputy, the person who actually does most of the work, is this woman, Jenny Kim. She goes to all these events in and around Washington D.C. She's very well known. She probably him and her and Marc hold the money purse, so they're quite powerful as to who buys seats and who helps each other out at these events, who buys books, who promotes speeches. It's just all it's really all bullshit. She's a lawyer as well, and it just goes on and on and on. These people who have the ability to speak on behalf of people who really suffer, who go through a lot. And we're going to look at the statistics in a minute. People that have been in this bullshit for 4 or 5 years, you're going to see how much they accomplish. So here's another person. So I'm actually just trying to give you ideas as to who are the organizations, who are the people behind this, who has a voice. So here's a prime example of somebody who's actually on both sides of the debate, right? So Rachel Barkow is a senior person at NYU Law. They have their own specific entity, like a lot of law schools do. Stanford and Duke, Harvard, Yale. They all have these little organizations within the school themselves, do bullshit work. They don't do anything. Again, they're just making money off the debate. They're selling books. They're going to speeches. They're raising their own profiles. But as you'll see statistically, as far as getting anything done, none of them do a fucking thing. None of them will lift a sign. None of them will do anything to help anybody but themselves. So she was just got off her term. She was on 5 years on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, and that the United States Sentencing Commission is the ones that actually lay the foundation for sentencing considerations for the courts. So post Booker from 2005, post Booker, it's been decided that these recommendations by the United States Sentencing Commission are not mandatory outside of mandatory minimums in the law. But their recommendations, the judges can do what that they want. It's at their discretion. But you'll see that more times than not, over 90% of the time, the judges stay within these United States sentencing guidelines. So she's on that side. I mean, she's on the bad side. She's not there trying to help us. And you'll see from the statistics, she's accomplished fucking nothing. But she gets to go out there, and she's invited all over Washington, D.C. to fucking sell her book, Prisoner of Politics, and come out as a benevolent reform advocate. I mean, this is the hypocrisy that goes on in this industry. That's just really disgusting, and one of the reasons that I'm making this video. So here's the United States Sentencing Commission statistics. I've just highlighted a few areas that I thought were important to you. Just kind of the meat and potatoes of draconian mass incarceration police state that we live in. So these statistics come from the United States Sentencing Commission. They were just published in May. So you can see pretty much it's pretty close, right? So these are just federal statistics. So from 2015, the total cases you see 69, 66, 66, 69. That's the total number of cases. So the number, and this is the most important thing, and this is what a farce the whole fucking process is, right? Is the percentage of guilty pleas, right? So it's shooting ducks in a barrel, right? So you see it's 97.1, 97.3, 97.2, 97.4, very, 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 steady. And so what I did was I picked out another area I thought might be of interest. So it's percentage of rats. And these are people that are getting assistant letters from the government for cooperation, right? So it's roughly around 21%, right? So 1 in every 5 people in the federal system is a fucking rat, right? Which is disgusting, but that's really the fiber of this country, cowards and rats. And so on the right there is the percentage receiving prison sentences, and you can see it's all above 90%. So the whole criminal justice process is a farce, and anybody that's been involved in the criminal justice reform movement has failed terribly. But you wouldn't know it if you talk to them and allowed them to speak for themselves. So one of the organizations that I noticed was that has some type of high profile for whatever reason coming out of Texas, the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Through research and outreach, we promote liberty, opportunity, and free enterprise in Texas and beyond. Some lawyer fucking wrote that, and that's just a con job as usual. You can see the big donate button. You'll always notice that because the whole reason these people exist. And I'm not going to get into about. If you just go through these any of these organizations, you go through about and you look at the people. They're all lawyers. They're all looking for money. They all get money from somebody. Probably Koch probably supplies money to a lot of these people. And they're all just scumbag lawyers. Now, the TPFF, the Texas Public Policy TPPF Foundation is funny. I was going through this, and I saw Dr. Wendy Lee Graham there. She's the husband of Phil Graham, the former Senator Phil Graham from Texas. She's a former head of the CFTC. She was involved in Enron. She was involved in the CFTC Modernization Act, which basically led the way to the destruction of the financial markets in 2008, 2009, which is, if you've heard my other YouTube videos, is the reason I got in trouble in the first place, is that the United States government came after me for a registration violation. That's what led up to the criminal charges when I fought back and wrote back stuff to them, and then they set me up with something else. But she's just an outright fucking criminal. As a matter of fact, in 2011, there was an administrative judge, George Painter, who said that his other administrative judge, this guy, Judge Levine, these are the two administrative judges within the CFTC, Judge Levine, in order to get the job, promised Wendy Graham that he would rule against farmers, against cattle ranch owners, against pension holders, against any plaintiff who wanted to hold accountable a large firm. He would rule against them, as he had promised Wendy Graham. That's what George Painter said. Over 25 years, he did that. And this motherfucker gets to be, this is the type of people that get to be on these organizations, scumbag criminals. This other guy, Doug Deason, I see his name all the time. He's just another ladder climbing scumbag, always backpatting somebody. But I want to show you something that I think is interesting. These people go out there as criminal form justice advocates. They're out for liberty and freedom. In a country we've already established this is a police state, right? So I showed you these numbers before from this U.S. Sentencing Commission. Look at the numbers below for Texas. Texas is almost a quarter of all the federal cases in the country. One state, a quarter, just by themselves. Their percentage of guilty pleas is over 98.5%. Now, the number of rats is lower than the national average, but the people receiving prison in Texas is 100%. It means you're indicted, you're going to prison. You know that. You're going to plead guilty and you're going to prison. And these fucking people, let's go back. These fucking people are backpatting themselves like they're accomplishing something, and they want money to do it. They should be all taken out and fucking shot somewhere at the Alamo. But it makes me fucking sick. So I want to take a second and let's just walk through some of these other organizations, because that's really what I'm trying to show you here today is who are all these people, and what do they do? So involved in the Texas Public Policy Organization, whoever those frauds are, is Right on Crime. I don't know how they're coordinated. I think Koch is involved with all of them some way. They're funding it in the background. This guy Marc Levin is another scumbag lawyer. I want to show you this guy here, John Kufos. John Kufos is another scumbag lawyer. He did time in prison. He was a drunk. and he did a hit and run, and he tried to blame it on his nanny or a babysitter or something. I'm not sure what the whole story was, but a real scumbag. And he's out there as the National Director of Reentry Initiatives for Right on Crime. You can't make this. These are the type of people that are allowed to have a voice. Guys like, and that's the reason they're not allowing a guy like me to have a voice. Why? Because I'm gonna keep it real, 100 all the time. I'm gonna call it for what it is, and I want it to be fair, and I want to call the people out who are making money off this bullshit. But guys like this, he's he's sorry and he does his mea culpa, and then he gets the back door into a fucking job and say that he's benevolent and he saw the light and he saw Jesus and all this bullshit. These are the motherfuckers that have a voice in this system. So like the NYU Law, the Mercatus Center is attached to George Mason University. They're big voice because they're in and around Washington D.C. Um, that's another one. Um, so here's a funny guy. So I've spoke to Pat Nolan before. So last week he was pardoned by President Trump, him and Conrad Black, and so Pat, you know, I think he's a good guy. He got caught bribing some people back in California back in the mid 1990s. This is you know, when we talk about Trump saying he's going to go to Washington, drain the swamp. This guy is ex-California guy. He lives around Virginia now. He's just in the criminal justice system. He's gone to prison. He saw the light. He saw Jesus. He was friends with Chuck Colson, another guy who converted a lot of people in prison. Um, and he's just carved out a life for himself. Basically doing what he does best, similar to Kevin Ring at Families Against Mandatory Minimums. They've just gone in there and they've parlayed their, getting caught and stuff into doing, saying they speak for guys like me, when they don't, and they're just self-promoters. And so at the end of the day, he knows the Kushner family pretty well, and he got paid back. The problem with Pat, my problem with Pat is I think he's a good guy. He's not a leader, right? He's a narcissist. He's out for himself. He's out there saying that he's found God and he's doing stuff. If he knew anything about Jesus Christ, he wouldn't take the pardon. He'd be out there sacrificing himself. But you can't talk to these people because they're fucking blind. But so Pat's out there, and he takes it. He takes the pardon, right? He does all this stuff for Step Act and all this on behalf of Trump, and then he gets a pardon. So what's the moral of the story is, that's it. You just you sell out other people, you exploit other people for your own benefit. But you're not a leader. You say you're a leader. The media will promote you as a leader, but you're basically out there for yourself. It's not inspirational. He's not leaving. He's not leading any revolution anytime soon. He's not picking up a sign. You could see his pictures there is right outside the White House, and it's just a hypocrisy that is just unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Brennan Center we talked about. That's the one up at NYU. There's some guy, Ames Grower or something like that. He's another prick, lawyer prick, protected by NYU. He gets paid. He gets paid to write books, paid to speak at events, writes, articles or research, and I could go there and name a whole bunch, and there's dozens and dozens of these people that get paid to do this stuff and accomplish nothing, as you can see. Vera Institute, they're another one that supplies information. America's at a tipping point. Just typical bullshit stuff, all lawyer stuff, feeding off of and exploiting a terrible, terrible system that's been in place for a number of years now that needs a complete overhaul. But it won't be an overhaul by any of these people, that's for sure. The Marshall Project. this fucking guy, Neil Barsky. I want to show you something. So about a year or so ago, Forbes, I think I shared with you, Walt Pavlo at Forbes did a 5-part expose on my story. And I was sending it out to people. I wanted people in the criminal justice reform organizations to see my story, right? I mean, that's what they do, right? We're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but that's what they do, right? They use people, they use people's stories to promote an agenda, right? So I'm just sending out to a number of people that I'm trying to figure out who's got a voice, who's got a platform, maybe somebody I can attach myself with, and let's do some activism. Let's see if we can make a change, evoke some change. So I reach out to this guy Barsky. I don't even reach out to him. I just send him really as part of a mass email. And look what this guy sent me. So I'm sending him this my articles here, and he writes back, please remove in bold print, right? And so I write back, you're fucking kidding me, right? You're the chairman and founder of the Marshall Project with this mission statement. The Marshall Project is a nonpartisan, nonprofit news organization that seeks to create and sustain a sense of national urgency about the U.S. criminal justice system. We achieve this through award-winning journalism, partnerships in other news outlets, and public forums. In all of our work, we strive to educate and enlarge the audience of people who care about the state of criminal justice. And so I write there, and you asked to be removed from reading a Forbes article about corruption and overreach in the U.S. criminal justice system? And I say, please tell me that you are not stupid or ignorant. That's stupid or ignorant. Please call me. I want to hear your fucking lame excuse for not just hitting delete, but actually sending me a please remove email. And this is the people you're dealing with. I mean, you're just dealing with scumbags. He's a former, actually, Wall Street guy, Morgan Stanley guy as well. Thinks he's some type of investigative journalist, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, that's why I'm kind of excited about doing this video, because I wanted to have this on some medium because I'm not going to be invited to speak anywhere. So I needed to get it out there who these scumbags are and to try to out them and attach their names as people, bullshit people. But that's it in a nutshell right there. When he doesn't want to read about my issues, my story, but he's some type of investigative journalist. Who he's writing about, I have no idea. But you can see it's just a con. So you have these think tanks, right? As well, you have Cato Institute. They have a specific area, for Constitution, the law, and the courts. It's also a farce, right? So this fucking dude here, I've talked to a couple times. He's a piece of shit. Gene Healy's a piece of shit. Todd Zwicky, Trevor Burrus, all these motherfuckers are, they write papers. They try to just have some agenda. They'll sell it to their board or whoever, and they accomplish. You could see, right? Statistically, they accomplish nothing. But year in and year out, they get paid. They get paid to be on the debate, and that's all they fucking care about, Brookings, not as much. They do mostly regulatory stuff, but they do have some area. But I wanted to show you, another organization, that's out there. So this is the one that I was talking to you about earlier, Reform Alliance. This piece of shit group here. It's sad, they come across, as activists and what's our mission? The mission of Reform Alliance is to dramatically reduce the number of people who are unjustly under the control of the criminal justice system, starting with probation and parole, which is definitely troublesome. I have specific legal arguments about how there are perpetual sentences in the system, and states give out far cruel terms of probation than the feds do, but it's still just a giant boondoggle for people who to just take advantage of you on the other side and then put away an easy way to put you back in. It's a terrible thing. But these people are not the fucking people to do it. That I can assure you. What are they gonna do? Fucking sell sneakers to do it? Self promote themselves? It's really it's disgusting, really. So one of the other sellouts is a guy named Shon Hopwood. So this dude he went to prison for robbing banks. I think it was in Nebraska or Iowa or something like that. Rural banks, real fucking coward. He's not going into Chase Manhattan in Manhattan, Chase Bank in Manhattan. He's robbing fucking farmers and the elderly out in Nebraska. Real scumbag. And then, he's one of these guys, redemption guys, right? Oh, I see the light, right? So I want to practice law. So he gets into bed with judges. He clerks for judges. Then he gets his law degree. Then somehow, some way, kisses the ass of the right person and gets to be a professor at GW. And then once at GW, 60 Minutes picks up his story. Somebody's trying to promote GW and redemption story, and so he's quite a high profile, as you can see here on the day of passing the First Step Act. I guess he was invited to speak, and these are the type of sellouts that he's associated with another group called Prison Professors. This guy, Michael Santos, is a real P.T. Barnum, selling bullshit stuff to guys out of the joint. I think I was watching one thing on Facebook one time. He's trying to sell investment property in Belize. All the guys that I came out of prison with are struggling, man. They're struggling to just make a living, or get a job, just try to hold something down so they don't go back in, so they don't resort to just selling drugs and, trying to make a living. And these fucking con artists are selling investment property in Belize. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But me and Sean, don't see eye to eye because he's on the other side. He's a sellout, and I'm not, I'm not down with that. I'm not, I'm going to call these people out. He called the First Step Back generational reform. Yeah, we'll see about that. They didn't even fund the fucking thing, as far as I've read. They didn't even fund it. And if they did fund it, guys like Pat Nolan, these fake ass Christians and these fake ass Christian organizations, they got $50 million a year for 5 years to go into the joint and sell Christian education. Just real scumbag sellouts. It's just really disgusting, unbelievable. So you'll see that the First Step Back, they're gonna back away from generational reform pretty soon. The numbers will be the same. And remember, don't watch the people in the joint in prison. Watch the people in the overall footprint. The First Step Back is going to increase the overall footprint through monitoring them through ankle bracelets and other methods and means. That's their goal over time. So here's another sellout scumbag, ladder climbing lawyer, Kevin Ring. He's a real douchebag. I don't know how he weaseled his way in. Julie Stewart started Families Against Mandatory Minimums. It's actually a good organization. Mandatory minimums is really a cruel thing. I'm not saying, as we've already discovered, I'm not a fan of federal judges, but mandatory minimums really just lock in people to draconian sentences. And especially for nonviolent offenders. There's just too many instances of it. And so this little prick here, he's been a lobbyist rat, Washington rat for many, many years. He went to prison with Jack Abramoff for bribing elected officials. And actually, he actually helped design, I guess, he had a say. I was working as a clerk or whatever, a staff member for some of these congressmen in drafting draconian sentences. He's self-admitted that. I'm not making that up. He's admitted that. And then he goes to prison and he sees the light and he's got another fake-ass redemption story. And then somehow, I don't know, he must have had nude pictures of Julie Stewart or something, and she retired and allowed him to become president. and now he's all over the place. Pham, because of Julie's hard work, has a pretty high profile in and around Washington. They have a pretty big say. They have state organizations as well, and this scumbag gets just to come out and do what he went to prison in the first place for, fucking being a scumbag in Washington. What can you say? So the new queen of criminal justice reform is Kim Kardashian. Why is that? Well, recently it's been told that she wants to become a lawyer. She's going to do it her own way, and she's really into the criminal justice reform movement. Why? Because in 2018, last year, she was able to get her way in, like most people can't, into a meeting with President Trump and an advocate for one lady, a woman named Alice Johnson, who supposedly was a nonviolent criminal, a nonviolent drug offender. I think she was sentenced to life, I believe, and she had already served 27 years. She was in her 50s, I believe, and an elderly black grandmother they sold it out for. And and I told you I'd come back to Trump. He's brilliant. People think he's stupid. He's not stupid. And so he really, a few months removed from Charlottesville, when everybody's calling him a racist and misogynist and white supremacist and Nazi sympathizer. He releases this woman, Alice Johnson, this elderly black woman, and lo and behold, he's a fucking benevolent criminal justice reformer. I mean, and he had all these people that I'm telling you about, market him that way. That's the crazy thing. And so Kim Kardashian, she says she's going through her Twitter feed and she sees the story of this woman and she decides she'll advocate for her. And God bless her. That that's not. But that's not what she's known for. She's known for being this cause celeb. Being famous for being famous. And obviously how she first became famous was a sex tape with a guy, a singer named RJ. And if I'm gonna try to keep this PG. If you've ever seen that tape, you can see what she's really good at. Um, uh, you know, so what I think is funny is that if you watch that tape, go Google the tape, look at the tape, look at her skill set, and look at Donald Trump's face there, and you make your own decision as to why Alice Johnson got pardoned or her sentence commuted. I have my own reasons or how I think it got accomplished. We know the stuff goes down from the Clinton era in the White House or in the room off of it. So I wouldn't rule anything out. But anyway, good for Alice Johnson. Good for Trump. Trump really smart doing that. He used it really cleverly. He doesn't do a lot. We'll look at that in a second. So these are actually the issues, the pardons issued by President Trump. I talked to you about Pat Nolan. He was pardoned last week. Sheriff Joe Arpaio we know about. He's a high-profile guy. He's not really a fan of immigration, and so Trump pardoned him right away. It was probably politically corrected, and that's the problem. It's not Sheriff Joe Arpaio not adhering to an order of whatever he was found guilty of, contempt or whatever. It was probably a political hit. The problem is that the millions of people affected by bullshit incarceration and bullshit indictments and bullshit prosecutions that Trump's never going to pardon, and that's the sad thing. It's not. I'm not holding these people out. I'm just showing you who he's advocated for, right, and used his pardon authority. Christian Saucier is a soldier, so we know that Trump runs on military and law enforcement, so he's going to go out of his way for military anytime he can, right? So Christian Saucier took some pictures of a submarine up in New London. He said he was picked on. It wasn't, other people had done it. I don't think there was any allegations that he actually was trying to sell it or anything. There were suspicious times that when he did take the pictures, but anyway, because he was a military guy and had some power and network, just like Kim Kardashian, Trump, he got on Fox and Trump watches Fox and Trump pardon the guy. Scooter Libby, we know he's a scumbag lawyer. He outed a spy, Valerie Plame. He helped Dick Cheney, start an unjust war where 3,000 military people lost their lives. Nobody wants to talk about that, but this is the type of guy that gets a pardon. It's again, disgusting, but what can you do? Denise D'Souza is Trump advocate. He's written a book on Trump. He advocates for Trump all the time. He's one of these fake ass Christians, these dangerous fake ass Christians, and he got pardoned. Hammond brothers, these guys, I think there was kind of a bullshit case as well. This is the type of case that my case was like, where the FBI or DEA or ATF gets fucking a hold of you and they won't let go, and they'll go to the ends of the earth trying to prosecute you. So I think the Hammond brothers kind of deserved the pardon or whatever. I don't think they were sentenced to a lot of time, but I think. Well, actually, one of them, I think the son was sentenced to 5 years. So I think there was, they were commuted and they were pardoned. Michael Bahena was just recently pardoned as well. He killed a guy in Iraq, a ISIS or Al Qaeda sympathizer supposedly. He said it was self-defense. I think his own unit testified against him. He was looking at a lot of time. I don't know how he was out free on bail, but he murdered a guy, so it was a violent offense. It's not a non-violent drug offense, or it's a fraud or anything like that. But because he's military and Trump will go to bat for his military for his own reasons. Don't get it twisted. Trump does this for his own reasons. And then Pat Nolan, we talked about it, and Conrad Black is he's worked with his ex-colleague of Trump. They've worked together, and Conrad Black has been very active voice against the criminal justice system, the prosecution system. But I don't even think he's an American citizen. I think he's a Canadian citizen. So it's a shame that all of us who are born and raised here in America. I don't think Denise D'Souza was born here either. So I mean, you look at just those few people. Two of them are not even American citizens. So it's a bit shame. Guys like me, who I have a formal pardon request in. I did it just for my own. I don't think I'm going to get it. I have no network. There's nobody going to bat for me. But it's just a shame that this is who it gets used on. And also too, right? So, these guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, 8 guys, whatever it is, they're all white, pretty much, and a majority of people in prison are black or Hispanic. He's commuted the sentences of these two people. Alice Johnson, we know about. She's become kind of a poster child for criminal justice reform. God bless her. She's stuck between a rock and a hard place. She can't criticize the administration. She's been co-opted by all Van Jones. Van Jones was in the Obama administration. They passed over Alice Johnson twice, and now he somehow gets to fucking co-opt her like he did it. It's fucking unbelievable. Shalom Robishkin is he's a bad dude, but I think this is a Kushner's. He's an Hasidic Jew from Brooklyn. Obviously, had very, very powerful pull. He was selling kosher meat into Israel. We know Trump is very powerful into Israel, so this guy had a lot of pull, a lot of power to get pardoned. He was facing a lot of years. He had done immigration violations. He had done the antithesis of what Trump runs on. He pardons a guy guilty of immigration laws, run afoul of immigration laws, and child work laws here in the United States, in Iowa, where he ran the butcher slaughterhouse. So anyway. So this is Trump. So, the media is going to tell you those 8 people that have gotten pardoned. But as you can see here at the bottom, there are thousands and thousands of people, hopeful people, looking to get pardoned. I don't really care either way, to be honest with you. It'd be nice, but I can vote now in Florida. That's one thing taken away. I never shot a gun, so that's the other thing. It's the cowardice society. It's not even the government anymore. It's cowardice society who discriminates against me. Corporations, people like Koch Industries, they won't hire me because I'm a felon. I mean, it's like a scarlet letter. So I can't do what I do best. I can't do anything. I can't drive an Uber, and a lot of guys are in similar situation to me. So presidential pardon is is nice, but it's not the end of the world. Commutation is huge, right? If you're serving an awful lot of time in there, and he has the ability to commute your sentence, that's a big deal. But you could see he doesn't give a shit. It's not going to get in his desk. There's two processes, right? There's an informal process. For all those people were all informal processes. They came through other methods. The formal process is to go to the Department of Justice, and as you can see, the Department of Justice doesn't pardon anybody. Why? Because they go back to the judges, they go back to the Department of Justice and the prosecutors, and they have no motivation to say anything nice about anybody. Why would they do that? So it's a bullshit process. I know Rachel Barkow, who we talked about earlier, is big on this clemency thing, and she's putting her toe in this hypocritically as usual. But at the end of the day, nobody's really saying anything about Trump's pardons or why he's not pardoning other people. But that's it's not a right, it's a privilege, and he gets to do what he wants to do because he's president. He's been voted president. So Matthew Charles is another guy who's kind of been used as a prop, poster boy. Guy was a bad dude, self-admitted bad dude, violent guy, drug seller. And he served 2 decades in prison, was released prematurely, and then guys like Kevin Ring and Shon Hopwood used him as for their own self-promotion. They found a way to see, the Alice Johnson thing, so they got another black guy, say they could get behind, right, and self-promote themselves, and then you got the usual hand jobs here, Kevin Ring and Cory Booker, who's fucking useless, and Chuck Grassley, who's just an outright criminal. I mean, fucking Iowa. This guy's been in fucking Congress or whatever, Washington for 40 years. Iowans can't come up with another fucking dude, a young guy, to replace this guy. I mean, he's just an outright criminal. But I'm not, I'm apolitical. It's Chuck Schumer's a criminal, and Nancy Pelosi's a criminal. These people just don't want to leave office, because they love the power, and then they fucking use guys like this as props. There's Shon Hopwood with Matthew Charles, and then President Trump invited both him and Alice Johnson to State of the Union earlier this year as a prop to see how benevolent he is. Don't get it twisted about President Trump. He knows mob mentality. He's a clever guy. He really knows how to use things, and it's working. He utilizes the media. He utilizes all these criminal justice organizations to sell him, to market him as a benevolent guy. He said he's pro law enforcement. He's pro military. I mean, he's pro police state, and these people are marketing him as some type of benevolent person. He's not, but. That's the danger of these criminal justice organizations, that all these ad hoc people that they prop up, and the media promulgates that as type of reform and evoking change when it's not. And that's why I'm really here today. That's the biggest thing. It's what a farce that is. So anyway, I know it was a little long. I don't know how long that was, but thank you for tuning in on an important subject, criminal justice reform organizations and the people that are behind them. When I came out of the joint, a few years ago and wanted to fight and do things, I wanted to reach out to these people. I wanted to work with these people and evoke some change. But as you can see, it's somebody like me is not going to be incorporated in their agenda, and their agenda is exclusively self-promotion, and selling for themselves, getting job security for themselves, and that's a shame. And they're exploiting the very people and families who are suffering in prison, suffering when they come out, that they never recover from. And then they do what Washington does best. They spin it in their own way. But you can see statistically you can't get away from that. And that's why I showed you those statistics, because that is what it is. No matter how they spin it or what they think the future is or this or that, that is it. And the people that have been around it for a few years should be ashamed of themselves. But people like me, I'm not going to get a voice. If I could go out there and wring the necks of these fucking people and throw them all out, I would. But I can't do it myself, and I've realized that. I can only do so much. I've already gone to prison a couple times for bullshit reasons for speaking out. And my wife doesn't want me to go back, and my children don't want me to go back. So I'm not that committed to do it, especially at my age. If I was younger and I could recruit a few people to do it, I would. I'm the guy, on behalf of the Constitution, trying to do the right thing. These people are just scumbags, and so I want it out there that through my YouTube channel, through my videos, that I want to call these people out. I want to expose them for what they are, and I know that people are powerless. There's not much that they can do when you have people like Chuck Grassley using it for their own agendas. And we are who we are, right? We're a police state. We're a very authoritarian state. Um, and we're cowardice. We're a cowardice state. If President Trump said, okay, so we need people to go into internment camps, for X number of weeks or months or whatever, because I need to figure some things out. 40 million people would walk voluntarily into internment camps. I really fucking believe that. Take their kids, their family, their dogs, and go in and turn themselves in. And that's whether President Trump said it or President Obama requested it. We are a cowardice society. Why are we cowardice? Because we allow a few million people, really a few people, to imprison and violate the rights of over 7 million people. There's 60, 70 million people who have felony convictions. I mean, when you start to get those numbers, you realize, I mean, what type of cowardice country we are, that we allow this to happen and allow these people to spin it a certain way and believe it. Let the media abrogate the First Amendment and sell these people stories. It's really disgusting. So in my own way, because I'm not going to get an avenue, I'm not going to get a platform to do it. This is my only way. So it's out there for people to see. So anyway, thank you for joining me, taking the time to view it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.